CCN. I am Victoria Molina, and today we will be discussing about stereotypical threats and racial differences in police encounters. There were a few researches done, and here's one of them. Throughout the first article, there were a few researchers who performed two studies. In the first one, they predicted that Black people have experienced stereotype threat in police encounters. In the article it says, for example, Sigelman and Tuck found that 82% of Blacks think they are perceived as violent by whites, and Sherian and Monin found that 20% reported being misperceived as criminals by strangers. What these researchers did to prove that Blacks felt they were more targeted by the police other than whites were by surveying both races regarding how much they worry about being treated unfairly by police officers. The survey revealed that Black participants were more likely than white participants to report worries about being racially stereotyped by police officers. The participants were 49 Black men and 184 white men, and they were all around 19 years of age. This is a very serious topic and could be uncomfortable for most. However, it's important to know the stereotypes that are going on in the world. Now here we have experts, Denise and Olivia.
Good morning. Today, Olivia and I are going to be discussing if law enforcement in fact stereotypes citizens based on their racial differences.
Yes, today we'll be discussing two articles that describe different police encounters that have been documented.
First, we will take a look at Study 2 from the article Stereotype, Threat, and Racial Differences in Citizens Experiencing the Police Encounter. Study 2 involved a social experiment involving 79 Blacks and 100 whites, which are from two different settings. This aimed at exploring the real impacts caused by stereotyping citizens based on their racial differences during police encounters.
The testing procedure began with participants providing demographic information including sex, age, race, and ethnicity, and U.S. citizen status. The studies focused on men due to the result of previous study that indicated stereotype threat was experienced at a greater degree by Black men more than Black women. The thought induction task played a pivotal role in the study.
The participants were instructed to imagine a specific hypothetical police encounter, imagining that a police officer is in close proximity and is observing them. The participants were encouraged to visualize and reflect on their feelings in this situation.
There were various measures to assess stereotypes threat explicitly and implicitly. Additionally, a word stem competition task was used to access stereotype activation, where participants completed word stems associated within the stereotype that Blacks are criminals. These explicit measures ensured that the police officers would have concerns about them being accused of wrongdoing.
Also, a scale assessing anticipated stereotype threats was created to gauge anticipated anxiety, self-worth, regulatory efforts, and behaviors perceived as suspicious by police. The final results revealed that Black men are more likely to anticipate stereotyping threats in police encounters compared to white men.
Additionally, Black men anticipated feeling more anxiety, engaging in self-regulatory efforts, and behaving in ways perceived as suspicious. Contrary to predictions, anticipated anxiety did not directly translate to anticipated behavior from both Black and white men.
However, Black men who anticipated stereotype threats also expected us to use self-regulatory efforts, leading to suspicious-looking behavior.
This research provided valuable insights into the intricate psychology process involved in experiencing of stereotypes threat in police encounters. The utilization of multiple measures and diverse participation sample contributed to the study's robust exploration of these complex dynamics.
Let's take a look at Tahara out in the field.
Hello, we're coming here today from a hair salon in Fort Pierce, Florida. Today we have our beautiful Jasmine.
Hello.
And we're going to ask her a few questions about the topic. The first question is, do you think that Black and brown men are more likely to call the police on a problem or leave it unreported? Why or why not?
I think that Black or brown men are more likely to not call the police and leave it unreported simply because of their safety.
Mm-hmm.
It is a fear that they have that they could be the person that isn't the victim anymore in whatever situation that might be.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you yourself have anxiety when you're having an encounter with a police officer?
I don't.
No?
No, I don't have any fears
Okay.
or anxieties. Because the only encounter I've ever had is like traffic stops.
Okay.
And I know that I'm not doing anything wrong or I don't have anything to hide, so I don't hold on to anxiety about it.
Okay. What would be one thing you could suggest to bridge the gap between African and American men and the police?
Ooh, that's interesting. I think that. Ooh, good question.
Thank you.
I think there needs to be sensitivity training for those establishments to see people that don't look like them as human beings as well, with feelings, with families, and that they deserve respect and dignity just like everybody else. And maybe being immersed with different cultures would help them to bridge that gap.
Thank you so much,
You're
Jasmine, for your
welcome.
participation today. I really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
We are live from Christ Fellowship in Port St. Lucie. Right here I have Patience and Esther, and so I'm going to ask them a few questions. First, Patience, do you think that black and brown men are more likely to call the police during a problem or leave it unreported? Why or why not?
I think because of I think they're more likely to not report it because of the known relationship that black and brown men have with police. They're more likely to be mishandled than any other people. So I would say other people.
Okay, and Esther?
I would have to agree with Patience. I think especially in the last few years, the things that have happened between black and brown men and the police, it is less likely for them to rely on the authorities to handle the situation with care.
Okay, awesome. Do you yourself have an anxiety whenever you're having an encounter with a police officer?
Yes. If I see like lights behind me, like if I see lights in my mirror while I'm driving and it's not even for me, I do get a little, even if I know I'm not speeding and I know I've done nothing wrong, yes, I do.
Yes, I would agree. My first experience with the police was them throwing my father on the hood of a car. So it is definitely very anxiety provoking to be around authorities, but not all authorities are bad.
I can understand how that would be, eye-opening. What would be one thing you could suggest to bridge the gap between African American men and the police?
One thing I would suggest to bridge the gap. I think if black and brown men felt more respected and valued, and I know that's really like general and broad and not as practical, just that feeling of, okay, if I get pulled over by the police, I'm going to be respected just as much as anybody else from any other color, and that my life is valuable to them. It's not going to just be mishandled, like she said, her dad, for whatever reason, I'm assuming it wasn't anything that warranted that, and they may not have done that to a man that was not black or brown. And so I feel safer with someone that I know values me and respects me as a person, as a human, as a citizen.
I think education is important. I think that the force has a responsibility to educate their officers. I think that black and brown officers can do a better job at not perpetuating the same fear that is caused in the force at wide. And I think that the force has a responsibility to educate their officers first and foremost, and if they're educated and know how to diffuse a situation without violence, then black and brown men can feel more comfortable relying on their authorities.
Awesome. Thank you so much, ladies. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Anytime.
And welcome back. Now we'll be discussing current events that have influenced the statement if law enforcement in fact stereotype citizens based on their racial differences. For example, the George Floyd case in 2020 was worldwide known and causes there to be movements like Black Lives Matters.
We have found an article discussing events like the Floyd case that has influenced many of the public's views. Let's take a look at the article Black Lives Monitored by Charles Arnett.
This article discusses how the tragic death of George Floyd and many other individuals have faced racial injustice when facing law enforcement, the same officers who are supposed to make one feel safe. These incidents have sparked protests for racial equality all over the world.
It opens the eyes of many on how officers of uniform have learned to manipulate their equipment and have been provided to ensure everyone's safety and be able to carry out these brutal actions without any concern.
The article also suggests that the traditional privacy framework provided may not fully address the new challenges faced by citizens during police interactions.
For example, challenges like racialized surveillance, calls for advocacy, constitutional interpretation, and legislative action to encounter police surveillance power.
These are all important topics to be considered by law enforcement during the fight for racial justice. Arnett also discusses that the effects of George Floyd's tragic death, for example, the impact it had on citizens all over the world and not just people of color.
During the Floyd case, there was also a world pandemic called coronavirus, which disproportionately affected families and communities of color when facing police encounters. Furthermore, supported the exacerbating of the existing inequalities.
The protests followed not only in the U.S., but globally demonstrated the urgent need for racial equality. The article emphasizes that the history of racial justice movements and emphasizes that citizens of color have been stereotyped during police encounters.
However, the equipment that has been provided to police enforcement, like biometric data collection, artificial intelligence, and visual tracing by law enforcement agencies, have been provided for political expressions, domestic governments, and the fight for racial justice in order to protect the citizens.
The Fourth Amendment is supposed to protect against unreasonable searches and seizures, which have fallen short during police encounters with modern technology that officers have been provided with.
This article suggests that law enforcement can modify the police encounters with citizens in order to prevent any accusations, like the STEM in law enforcement, in fact, stereotype citizens based on their racial differences.
Thank you for tuning in today.